All right, this is take two. My wife came in the last one, um, and she ruined the whole thing. So it's her fault. Um, my name is James. You guys know me, James Cornish, and I've been posting on here a lot in the past about Hancock Brook Dam, Todd Hollow Road, Hancock Brook Lake, really anything in the Todd Hollow Greystone area I have an affinity for. And the reason really being is I spent a lot of time down there as a kid and I never knew what any of it was. But now I've done a lot of research. I've spent the last 5 or 6 years or so really researching the area. And I think I have a pretty good understanding, probably a better understanding than most of what's down there. And I was going to go through with you today some things. So my goal is, being in quarantine, to go through a bunch of different things. So I was going to do one on the railroad, how the railroad has changed in town, and really how important the railroad was back in the day. The section that goes through our town. I was going to do a section on the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company, which is a really interesting story. It could be a sitcom. It's a really cool story about how that company acquired the land and what they did down there. I was going to do one about the dam itself. The building of the dam, the taking of the land, just how much that part of town changed. There's a lot of things that happened, and then I was going to do one about the northern part of Todd Hollow Road, the Johnson Brothers property, and all that type of stuff. So I have all this information. I usually put it out in the form of pictures, and I try to form sentences and kind of put together like a little bit of a history lesson. But I thought that this would be a cool way to try to get it across a little bit more interactively, so you can kind of see what I'm going to do. So I have some stuff on my desktop here, and we're going to take a look at it. So we're going to start way back in the day. We're going to start back in 1852. So this is a map 1852 of the area that we're talking about. So this here is Todd Hollow Road. This stretch here. Now this is closed now, so there's a gate up here. This is Scott Road. This is Keegan, and this is the existing part of Todd Hollow Road. And as you know, there's a gate here. The Army Corps of Engineers has closed it down. It hasn't always been closed down, but we'll talk more about that in the future. And then this stretch is abandoned, and then of course blocked off here, and there's an outed bridge down here now. That's what it looks like now. Back in 1852 it was a lot different. So this stretch used to go all the way from Route 6. It actually used to come down. There's a fork in the road, which is still there. And then it used to break off to the left, and this used to go all the way to the Todd Hollow in Woolkit. And so Todd Hollow Road in Woolkit used to connect from Spindle Hill Road and used to go all the way to Route 6 in Terryville. So you'd be able to take that, traverse that path. Think about it, coming back from Woolkit. You'd be able to bang a left and get to Route 6 in 5 minutes. Instead, you have to go all the way around now because of the dam. But that's been abandoned. That is now Myers Road, and that ends up in the woods, and it's just really a dirt path now through the mountain. But this fork is still there. So you can see there was a Scarrett that owned property here, and there was a Mrs. Shelton that owned property down here. We're going to really be focusing on this area today. You can see Hancock Brook coming in from the east, and then Todd Hollow Road coming in, Todd Hollow Brook coming in from the north, and they convolute right in here. This also has the proposed line of the Providence Hartford Fishkill Railroad. This is before the railroad was even put in. This was the proposed line of where it was going to go. We're going to jump ahead to 1874, and it's the same thing. As you can see, the big differences here are the railroad is actually in. You can see how curvy this was, and it was extremely dangerous. They used to have to go extremely slowly through this path coming from Waterbury up to Bristol. And the reason for this was because of the grade. They had to do this because of the grade. They had to follow this brook all the way from Waterbury all the way up into Bristol because of the grade. And you have to go very, very slowly around these corners because it was so curvy, as you can tell. This is the same alignment, so all the way, as you can see, coming down Todd Hollow Road. Miss Shelton is still here, and so is Scarrett. They're still here. And the road going all the way over to Woolkit is still here. So this alignment still exists. The interesting part about this picture is Greystone was on the other side of the train tracks of what it is now. Think about that for a minute. So when you drive Greystone, if you're coming from Waterbury, The train tracks are on your left. It would have been on your right back then. And I'm going to do a little bit more on that when we talk about the realignment because it's a really cool thing to look at. But you can see how much this has changed now. And these were grade crossings. And the reason for one of the major reasons they did this realignment was because these were grade crossings and they wanted to get rid of these grade crossings. So that's that. Now we're going to jump ahead to a map in 1920. And not a lot of people have seen this map. This map I found in the National Archives in Boston when I was researching the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company. And this map is drawn by CL&P. As you can see down here, it was drawn in CL&P in 1920. That's when this was done. It was done, it looks like, October 23rd, 1920. All right. And again, it shows very similar alignment, but remember, this is done after the railroad was straightened. So you still have that fork. Here's your fork in the road right here that still exists. This is the road that used to go over to Woolkit. This is the one that used to be Todd Hollow Road. Then they straightened the road. They put in a crossing here. This is where the old bridge used to be. They removed that. They put this bridge in. That's the Todd Hollow Bridge that most people know, the one that was there from 1910 until 1965 when it was removed to build the dam. But that's what this used to be. And then you can actually see the old railroad bed here as it came through. You can see the new one. Then you can see Hancock Station right in the middle. If you were to go look at this today, this is built up considerably, and they did it again when they built the dam. But these roads are they're still there, but they're hard to see. The fork is definitely visible. But all of these houses over here, these are all gone. They've been gone for a long time. Even this ice pond that you're seeing over here has been gone for a long time. This old lane on this side, gone for a long time. Once they started opening up the ground to get the gravel and sand out, all of this is gone. Some of these stakes and some of these property markers are still there. You can find them when you're going out in the woods. But for the majority, most of this is gone. It was removed when they did gravel, but a lot of this was torn down when they built the dam. When they condemned the properties, they ripped a lot of this down. So none of that exists. The foundations are still there, but the buildings themselves are not. So that is the map from 1920. This is a very cool map. What this does show is that CL&P owned all of this property back in 1920. That property then was purchased by a man named Michael S. Madden, and here he is. This is a transcript from a court document in 1967 that was done. Actually, this was done down in Thomaston. They were going over gravel property rights when the government took over the property down here, and they were going over mineral rights. And this man purchased this in 1938. All of that property you just saw on the map, 1938, and then he broke up the property into several different parts. And here's a map. This is an actual Army Corps of Engineer real estate map, and it's inverted, so north is actually going to the left. So north is actually over here. But you can see the railroad coming through. You can see Todd Hollow Bridge right here. And then you can see that the majority of this, number 200, was owned by the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company. And then you can see Tessie Barber over here, who bought some of the property from Michael S. Madden. And then over here, 201, Fred McVeigh sold this to William Oliver, who apparently had family still here in town as of recently, but I haven't been able to find out much more. So that's a recent property map there. Then after that, I mean, this is from 1965, but it does give you does give you what the layout was. We can jump ahead to a Fairchild. This is a Fairchild survey from 1934, and again, we're looking at the same thing. You can see the fork in the road here. You can actually see the houses that we saw on that map from 1920. You could actually see the old lane. Here's that road that was labeled Old Lane. Here's the thing they called the ice pond. You can see the old bridge was right here. Here's the old road bed for the train track coming through here. Here's the bridge that still exists down there now that goes over Hancock Brook. And then here, obviously, is the Todd Hollow Road Bridge here. This was all farmland, and this is before it got opened up. All right, you can see how open it was back then. And then in 1951, you can see this is when they started opening it up. So you can still see the fork in the road here. That still exists. You can see the Todd Hollow Road Bridge here, but you can see how they started opening up the ground. So somebody took off the loam 1951, 1952. Michael S. Madden, his people came in here and they noticed that there was a ton of sand and gravel in here. In fact, there's still a ton of sand and gravel in here. I have the bore tests for how deep this goes, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company. But there was a reason why they fought to keep this land from the government, because there's a lot of stuff in here. You can also see across the street, they opened up the land over here. Now, when Michael S. Madden sold this property, he sold the mineral rights to the people across to whoever bought this piece of property, still owned the mineral rights to the people who owned this property. So literally, you could be living here, and the person who lived across the street could come in with a bulldozer and take out the minerals. They own the mineral rights to it. It's actually in the deed in the town books. It's really interesting. We're going to jump ahead to 1965, and here is what it looked like when the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company had it. So as you can see, the alignment still coming down. This is when the bridge was already removed. This is 1965. This bridge was removed in 1964, July of 1964. You can see the fork in the road here still exists. You can see where they opened up the ground over here a little bit. You can see where they opened it up over here. You can see a bunch of cars and trucks here. This is probably from the construction company while they were raising the road bed, the gravel bed over here. You can see the Watertown Concrete Pipe Company here, which we're going to go into a lot more detail. And then the next picture that you're going to have of this area is going to be of kind of what it looks like today. These buildings aren't here anymore. We're going to get, again, I'm going to get in a lot more detail with this, but it's really interesting to see how this alignment has changed over the last 150 years. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It was quick. I just really needed something to do on a Thursday night, but leave some comments. Let me know if you want to do another one. And I think I'm going to try to do one on the railroad next. So be safe.